The next important configuration we have to take care of now is the user groups and attributes. On your marketplace, you will have two types of users. You will have the sellers, sometimes called the providers or the suppliers, and the customers, the buyers. So right now we're going to go and create two user groups, and then we'll take care of the attributes. So from the settings page, click on users. And here there are some basic parameters, but the first thing we want to do is create new groups. So to do that, we click on user groups. And here you will see the list of your groups, but we have none so far. So we add a new group by clicking on add user group. And we'll create our first group, which will be the seller group. So we'll give it the title of seller. And of course, we authorize them to post listings. The next field is to define the type of entity most of you users will be. If you're dealing mostly with individuals, then select individual. And if you're dealing with companies mostly, then select companies. It's required. This info is required by the payment processors like Stripe and MangoPay. But don't worry, you're not tied to a specific type of entity. If at a later stage you want to work with one or the other, you'll be able to. The next parameter is public group. What this parameter does is on the default sign-up form, it allows users to change groups themselves, which we won't be using. So we're just simply going to set this parameter to no, because we're going to have separate forms, one specific form for the sellers and another one for the customers. The next parameter is how you want to display the name of the users, this group, on the different listing pages. And you have many options here, but we'll just keep it simple and display only the first name. Next, specify the URL to which the users of this group will be redirected to right after sign up. So it can be any URL you want, but a good thing to do is to redirect the sellers, since it's the seller group, so redirect them to the new listing creation page. And the URL for this page is /listing/new. So every time a new user signs up, they will be redirected to the new listing creation form. And finally, of course, we want this group to be active. So we say yes and click save. All right, so we have our seller group here now. And the next thing is to add the customer group. So we're just going to do the same thing. So for the title, we'll use customer. And so the customer by default won't be allowed to post listings. So we say no. And usually the type of account is often individual, but sometimes it can be agencies, but it's up to you. But again, most of the time customers are individuals. Again, for the next parameter, we don't want the users to have to specify which group they want to sign up to, because we'll have separate forms, one for the customer, one for the seller. So we set it to no. For the next parameter, we use the same setting as with the sellers. And for the URL to redirect the users to, we're simply going to redirect every user that signs up to the main browsing page. So it's /listings. Again, you could use any URL you want, but this one is the most straightforward. And then finally, we want this group to be active. So we simply select yes, and we'll click save. You now have your two user groups, customer and seller. And at any time, you can come back to the form just by clicking on the name of the group. And the most important information here is at the top of the form. Here is the direct link to the registration form. This is the URL you will use wherever you want to link the form for this group. So here is the seller registration form. So the most important part is this part at the end. And usually in the menu, for example, this is the path that you'll use. You don't have to use the full URL. So for instance, if I go to the customer form, I can select the URL and enter it in my address bar. And here it is. The form is ready for people to sign up, entering their info. And this is good for our customers. But what about our sellers? we would like to have a little more of information about our sellers when they sign up. So what we would like is to add more fields to the sign up form. And this is done via user attributes. User attributes are a way to collect more info about specific groups. So to add a user attribute, go back to the user settings and then click on user attributes. And here is the list of your user attributes. The list is empty, so let's add some right now. So for instance, a user attribute for a seller could be their level of experience, whether they are a beginner, intermediate, or an expert. So we're going to add that right now. You can formulate it as a question. So how many years of experience do you have? Next, choose the type of field for the sign-up form. So here we pick the number type. We want this field to be required. And we don't need to display this information on the user profile. Next is the visibility. And we're going to choose to display this field both on the sign-up form and on the profile edition form. And lastly, the sort priority parameter lets us configure the order of appearance of the fields in the sign-up form. So the lower the number, the higher this field would appear on the sign-up form. So right now we only have one user attribute, so we can leave it to that. Note that the sort priority only concerns the user attributes. You can place a user attribute field above the default fields. And then we select the user group seller and save. Now, let's add another user attribute for our seller group. This time, we would like the sellers to give us the info whether they agree to work on premises or if they do remote work only or both. So we're just going to put that. Next, let's choose the type of form input that will appear. So we can choose either drop down or checkbox. And then we are able to list the different options that will appear on the sign-up form. So the first option will be remote job. And for the second option, it will be if they prefer to work on premises. And let's add a third one, which is a way for them to tell that they have no preference and they can do both. At any time, you can change the order of these options or add new ones or remove one. Next, let's make this field required, and we want it to display on the user's profile. And we keep the same settings as the first user attribute. Here, the sort priority, if we leave it to 0, it will simply go after the first user attribute we created. But of course, you can put any number. Anyway, then let's assign this user attribute to the seller group again. And click Save. And here we have our two user attributes that are linked to the seller group. And now let's check out our seller signup form now that we've added these user attributes. So to see the URL, remember, we go to the seller edit form, copy the link here. Let's open it. And here's how our seller signup form looks like. As you can see, it has the same fields as the customer signup form, but it also has two additional fields that correspond to the user attributes that we just created. So the number of years of experience and the mission move preference.